All right, with that, we are closing the public comments, and we will move on to interviewing the candidates. If I could ask the candidates to step up and pick a number, we will interview the three candidates. I believe the delegation like 15 minutes for you to testify, and then 15 minutes for questioning. Come on up and pick a number. So as the first person, testifies, the other two will be in another room, please. And then as you finish your testimony, you may remain first up. Okay, so
where does one sequester?
there is a second meeting room just across the hall there. First up is Creteau Miller.
It is.
Is that reasonably close?
Yes. Creteau's perfect. Creteau is what I hear.
And we need big outside voices around here because we're all.
Nothing to do, I've raised children. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the delegation for their time. I write my notes in very large font so I can see. And take the opportunity to apologize for my late resume. It came in, I know you didn't get it till Friday. I was out of the country for a few weeks on a very much needed vacation. And the ad, I didn't see the ad till I returned. So I spent a week putting together the resume and getting it into you. I'd also like to thank Tom Day and all the employees of Gunstock for doing such a fabulous job over the last couple of years. I grew up, I'm a New Hampshire native, born and raised and brought up here and lived my whole life here. Not to say I haven't had homes elsewhere for part of the season, but I am an avid skier and I've skied most of North America and visited more ski areas than the ones I haven't in this continent. And I've seen resorts run in several different communities, large and small. And coming back to Gunstock, having learned there 61 years ago, when I was 4 years old, my dad took me there and I learned to ski at Gunstock. Lost many of my wool mittens on the rope toe, the old rope toe. For those of you old enough to remember that old rope toe. And he, hands down, I mean, they're doing a fabulous job compared to some of the big boys. I call them the big boys. So kudos to Gunstock employees. It takes all those employees to really make a successful ski area. And then taxpayers, because yes, when the money's needed, it comes out of our pockets. But fortunately, the way the mountain's being run today, that isn't going to be necessary in the foreseeable future, hopefully. The ski business is harvesting snow. It's farming. You're farming snow, and when you have lean years, it's tough. I've raised my children here. I have full-grown children. My youngest is going to be 30 next month. They're all college graduates, all married, and all successful. So I've done my job, which gives me time to do things like this. I have owned and operated a ski area. I came into it in a very odd way. I started teaching skiing in 1990 at Bromley Mountain in Vermont. I lived in the western part of New Hampshire at the time, only summered up here on the lake. And when I got to the point of everything I could do at Bromley, I wanted to change the scenery, and I drove over to Magic Mountain because I knew they were a small mountain, and I really loved it there. And I asked them if they needed any help, and they hired me as the Learning Center director. They didn't even have a Learning Center. So I developed that, licensed the child care, so I did all the licensing, construction of the facilities. After some history of Magic Mountain. It was owned by a great guy, Hans Thorner, who I got to meet back in the early 80s. And it closed down when money was buried to support some other ski areas that were owned by that same group. And it was reopened in, I believe, 96, 97. And that is when I got involved with the Learning Center. However, at that point, it was going to go through a foreclosure, a legal foreclosure auction. And I was approached to see if I wanted to be a partner and an investor. And I said only if it went through a foreclosure, because I knew that there was a lot of ghosts in other people's closets I didn't want to be involved in. So my agreement with the partnership was, I will be a partner, but I will be in charge of all finances and monies, and no one will touch it but me. So I would make those decisions, making sure the payroll taxes were paid, making sure vendors that did work there got paid, making sure that the hiring was done appropriately and legally. And it came back to life. We brought in some services, we opened the cafeteria, got the bar running, brought it back to life. It actually increased in property values, and it seemed everyone that was coming was happy. I had a great team, a very small team, but a great team, because it takes a team to run a ski area. After 3 or 4 years, not 4 years there, as a partner, I decided to sell my shares because my partners were getting a little greedy, and I didn't want to be part of it, so I left. But I enjoyed it there, and bringing it back to life, and the energy, and the employees, and the customers were fabulous. I also brought back the rental center, the retail center, child care center. My next endeavor was owning and operating a Walpole Inn in Walpole, New Hampshire. My children were raised there. Before that though, I was an elected school board official. The first person ever from the town of Walpole to get elected by the town of Charlestown. It was a 5-down school district, Fall Mountain Regional School District. And that was an experience for me that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a great board. We don't micromanage. That's kind of the point I wanted to make here. It seems like, from what I'm reading, a lot of micromanaging is going on, and you have a great team. So just oversee and make sure your team is doing what they're paid to do, and not micromanage the mountain. At the Walpole Inn, I owned it, operated it. It was a 16,000 square foot home that I lived in. It is actually a historic building. It used to be Fort No. 3 along the Connecticut River in Walpole. Fort No. 4 is in Charlestown. I did all the payroll, all the business. I didn't have a partner, it was just me. I had great employees. We had a 100-seat restaurant, and we did events, functions, weddings, a lot of the local businesses. Ken Burns, a documentary filmmaker, lived there. He did functions at my restaurant. We had all kinds of events going on, and my children lived there with me. We lived at the inn. I had 8 guest rooms and a lovely restaurant, which is operating today under new ownership. I was on the Alstead Planning Board. I lived in Alstead, even though my children went in Walpole. It's a 5-school district, 5-town district. So I was an alternate on the Alstead Planning Board for 6 years, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and learned a lot about town planning. And that was quite an experience. While my kids were at the local school, I developed a children's ski program from ground up, and developed a snow sports program, which I ran for 10 years and did all the training. I'm a little nervous, but I think that the commission or board, the charge, is to oversee, not micromanage, the professionals that operate the ski area. I am excited to become a member of that, if you so choose. I have a lot of energy and time, which is important. I have been away. I've been living my winters in Utah and working at Park City, the National Ability Center, as a volunteer. I'm a professional volunteer since I retired, and bring, I think, a lot of background in the skier business, even though some might think you don't need people that know the ski business. I think you need several people that know the ski business, because it is a business. It is, yes, county owned, but it has to be run as a business. Not necessarily to grow, but to prosper. It needs to prosper. And that involves a lot of individuals with expertise. And you have to trust those people that you've hired for those positions when they come to you for money or for plans to bring more money to the mountain. I don't know what else I can add to that. You have my resume with all my experience, and I would be happy to answer any questions. I am a registered, my life, I've been a registered voter in the state of New Hampshire since I turned 18 and was able to vote. I live in Meredith, been in Meredith for, had a summer place in Meredith for years, but I'm now a year-round resident. I've been here for about 10 years. But I was living in New Hampshire my whole life, and I would like to be on this board if you so choose. And I am open to listen to everything. I'm a very complimentary. I will listen to all sides, and I can be convinced if I have a particular idea about something. You can change my mind. But I do like to make educated decisions for the area and for the community and the taxpayer.
Okay. Questions? Representative Johnson.
Thank you for taking my question. Thank you for coming forward and putting in your application. I appreciate it. One question I do have is, what is your vision for Gunstock?
To keep prospering, because it is a taxpayer-based mountain. I think that reading about different ideas about the area, you sell it to someone that operates a skier, let's say a Vale of Terra or whatever. Well, you could do that, but there's no guarantee that they're just gonna shut it down and abandon it. If it's a public-owned area, the public is always gonna be there for you, in my opinion. And the vision is to just keep it going and prospering and have it be a great recreation area for the taxpayers and for people that come up and visit. This is a tourist state. I mean, we depend on tourism more than anything else in the state of New Hampshire. So services, I mean, that's your moneymaker, offering services at the ski area, whether it's a learning center, the rental center, the retail center, the restaurants, the bars. I mean, that's your money, that's your operating money. That's where you're making your money. And paying your bills and maintaining. You have to maintain and you have to upgrade equipment. You can't just let the equipment run down, because then it's gonna cost you more in the long run. I hope that answered your question.
Yes. So, one statement that you had, let me see what I wrote.
I'm not even sure I saw what I said.
You mentioned that you have a home also in Utah.
I don't, I sold that, that's why I'm here now. I've been skiing in New Hampshire now for the last 2 years, full time.
Okay.
I have been, yeah, no, I'm here now.
No,
I have grandchildren
so my
now,
question
so
was,
I
which
wanted to
answers
place.
it, how are you gonna be able to, if you're going to Utah,
I'm here.
how to be here and back, how are you gonna do this?
That's why I'm here tonight.
Okay,
I'm here now.
thank you.
Representative Comstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your application and being here. You said you're now back here with some, Representative Johnson asked one of my questions. Where are you skiing mainly?
Midweek, I mainly ski Gunstock.
Okay.
I feel like I've come full circle. And that's why I was so impressed.
Yeah, so being a skier at Gunstock and seeing what's going on with the mountain, what would you say the top 3 priorities are for the mountain?
Well, sometimes I'm really bothered that the bathroom's not working at the top. I think that there's some changes that need to be made as far as, just upgrading and offering more services. You've got lodges that are a little kind of far away from lifts. That it could be nice if there were some facilities and services closer to the lifts. I think that would benefit not only the locals, but everyone visiting the mountain. It's a great mountain. I think maybe expanding the food service at the top of the mountain. You're not going to disrupt anything. You have a service road. I'm assuming there's a service road to the top of the mountain, because in the summer you have to maintain water bars, you're gonna maintain your lifts, you're gonna fix any pipes or water making that might be broken, you're gonna do all of that over the summer. Services, to expand and grow, it doesn't have to be a lot. The money, they're making money, so take care of the equipment, and there's just small changes. Expanding maybe some of the trails, because you do have more area to build more trails, because you're limiting tickets, which is great, but there's so many people that would like to come, so why not let them come by giving more trails that enables you to sell more tickets, make more money, and the taxpayers don't have to.
You mentioned facilities closer to the lift. How would you achieve that? And what would be sacrificed for that?
I don't think you have to sacrifice anything. I have read, having only been back a couple of years in the winter, I'm here every summer, now full time, I know there's the lift at the bottom of the main chair going to the top. It's quite a walk, and I know a lot of families go in there. Through my travels and being at different ski areas, when people say there should be a restaurant, well, if you put a restaurant in that particular building, well then where are people gonna go? But you can do both. You're not I don't feel you have to sacrifice a space to add a service.
And how would you do that? Because that lodge is usually filled with families.
Yes.
Watching their children, so how would you not sacrifice that space and still have?
You can still offer a great food service and still allow all the people to have the tables and be where they are. I'm curious, I haven't read the entire master plan, but I've read some, and I think that you can expand that building a little bit to add more space for dining, but you don't have to close off the area to families being there just to dine. I'll give you an example, Deer Valley. I don't know if anyone here has ever been to Deer Valley, but they have excellent food service, and you don't have to be eating food to sit in that area, but still have an excellent opportunity to eat a tremendous variety of food and spend money and enjoy it, and people come and clear the table whether you've eaten or not. I mean, all over the country there's resorts that do that, and use the same facilities that families are in, because it's all about families. Did I answer that? Are you happy with that answer? I just.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for putting in your application, we really appreciate it. My question is, I'll ask all three applicants the same question, is how do you feel about special discounts for Belknap County residents as far as ski tickets?
Well, myself being 65, I get my senior pass midweek, which is a pretty good discount. But I actually think that's a pretty darn good idea. Personally, for Belknap residents, to the taxpayers, why not give them a break? It's not rocket science. It's not the first time it will have been done in a community, anywhere in the ski industry.
Would you be in favor of bringing back $25 a day tickets prices? We used to have on Tuesdays we have a $25.
Well, I know what you're saying. It's all relative to, the state-owned Cannon Mountain does $25 senior Wednesdays, right? Is that correct?
$25 on Wednesdays.
Period. For New Hampshire residents. I think that's something to look at, for sure. I mean, I have to look at it, but right now with the amount of money they're making, I don't see why you couldn't do a day, but you have to be able to facilitate the numbers. Would that be a limited ticket? You'd have to look at, that's where adding some trails and being able to have a higher capacity on the mountain without growing too big. I mean, I think that I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that, but I would have to look at the books, I would have to look, it would have to be something, I think it's a great idea. Is it feasible?
We used to have it, we did it at Gunstock, probably 7 years ago, that was the situation.
So,
I appreciate your.
why did it stop? I wasn't here during that time. Can I ask you that question?
You can, I don't know a huge amount about it, but, it seems to slowly disappear, immensely.
Was it during lean years?
I mean, I was not a member of the delegation at that time,
I'm just curious as to why it came and why it went, but I think it's a great idea.
That's a good question.
Let's go to Representative Perry.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Creteau Miller, for your application,
You're welcome.
and also for attempting to reach out to members of the delegation. We really appreciate that.
Wasn't much, but I tried, it was last minute.
And for your responses to the questions that have been posed to you thus far. This question will go to you, but it will also go to the other two candidates. You have correctly observed, in my view, a distinction between oversight and management on a day-to-day basis. The role of a member of a board of directors, comparably, that's what we're looking at here, is more of an oversight role. And I think you've given evidence of that in the remarks that you've made already. Unlike a private corporation where meetings of boards of directors are usually behind closed doors, the meetings of our board of directors at the Gunstock Area Commission are very public, for reasons that I'm sure that you're well aware of. So I'm interested to know, how many meetings of the Gunstock Area Commission have you attended? And what is your take on the way in which the commissioners conduct the meetings and their interactions with each other?
Well, I have to apologize for saying I haven't attended any. I've been away for many years. However, when I returned and reading the newspapers and the stories and what's happening, I really can't speak to how I feel the board has been conducted, because I have not been a part of it, and I have not attended any. I have not been here to do that, but I plan on it.
Thank you.
Representative Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. So, first off, I'm excited to see that you have some planning board experience, which means, I'm assuming that means you've done site plan reviews and other businesses and things that are coming in.
Yes, and no, well, that's town of Alstead smaller, yes.
So is your understanding when a person comes into a planning board with a site plan, is that the final product or is that the beginning of the product?
That's the beginning of the product. You have zoning you have to deal with. I mean, the zoning in towns that the planning board's charge is to follow the zoning rules and regulations. So if there is a question, then that would have to go before the zoning board, before the planning board can make that decision.
So when you read the master plan that was put out for
I did.
the ski area, did you view that as a final product at the beginning of the conversation?
I think that's the beginning of the conversation.
Thank you. One last question I had. I also see you were serving on the school board.
I was.
So you have, looks like somewhere here, about 12 years in public, and working with public bodies and understanding public meetings. So I assume you have a decent handle on 91A in public meetings and what are the requirements.
And Robert's Rules of Order.
And as well as Robert's Rules of Order. So I find that exciting to have somebody, not just with some business experience, but with some public meeting experience that understands that maybe some of our other members might lack. So thank you.
Before Representative Johnson gets a second question, any others? All right, I'm gonna take advantage of my position to ask about, in the terms of planning, the master plan has been proceeding, and I believe there was $70,000 expended on that. A major focus is a hotel, and there are legal questions about the possibility of putting a hotel there. Do you think it's proper to spend a lot of money on a master plan without knowing ahead of time, or doing a research on the project of a hotel, whether or not that is putting the cart before the horse, or is the
Well, I think legal issues should always be resolved, before going on with anything, because otherwise you're wasting money if the legality of it doesn't work. I'm not sure how I feel about a hotel. I'm just not there yet. I understand it. I understand why ski areas are bought and sold, and a lot of it is the ability to have hotels. It's all about the real estate and what you can get from that real estate in retail and service end of the business. But I'm not, because I grew up skiing Gunstock my whole childhood, and I understand the need to expand some trails, to add some more services on the mountain. I don't know where I am, I'm being honest with you, until I need to hear more about the hotel part. I'm not there yet.
Okay, and
Just my
following up,
honest opinion.
there was also a question about conservation easements on some of the projected expansion plans. Do you know anything about?
Well, I think it's a good, when I lived in Utah, I lived in Park City for 5 years, but then I lived and had a place in Big Cottonwood Canyon up in Brighton, that was actually a part of, they just became a town. That a year before I sold my house, I was a part of getting the town formed. It was never a town, it's now a town. It was quite a process and an exciting endeavor with the community there. A lot of the you got Brighton, you got Solitude, and a lot of times they do land swaps, because it's on you got national forest, you got national forest and some private land. So if you're gonna develop an area, it's nice to put other areas in conservation and kind of, I don't know if that's the way it works in New Hampshire, but as far as land swapping and conservation, I think conservation is a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Here's mine.
Is it feasible to swap
Okay. We have run out of
expanding
time.
and putting others into conservation I think is a good thing.
That's great. Thank you for
You're very
being
welcome.
with us for that. Great.
Croc TV.